Hey y'all, it's your girl Camille Who, the performing arts renaissance woman, and I'm back. Yes, this time I'm playing some rhythms for you. In fact, the next few videos is going to be me playing some rhythms. This was a Latin groove, and I'll tell you the reason why I even chose a Latin groove. I grew up, some of you don't know it, some of you do. I grew up in New York City. I was exposed to reggae, reggae dance hall, Latin music, African music, Afro beats, especially in break dancing. I grew up in the beginnings of the hip hop culture. And so in that, and I'm going to build upon this, okay? And this is going to all make sense in a moment. At first, let's see, I got my my start, as far as I can remember, I got my start in rhythm with there's like just the subconscious exposure to reggae music, right? Being played in my household. My brother used to play it. He had his own sound system. He built his own speakers. Like he got all the electronic components and he built all of this, his whole system, which is pretty amazing to me. But I just used to watch him building speakers. Okay, getting pieces and parts and cutting wood and sanding and all that stuff, and he would just make speakers. Anyway, so he played reggae in our household. Our family, we would have family get-togethers. Of course, my family is Jamaican, so there was a lot of roots rock reggae that I was exposed to, reggae dance hall when that came out, that I was exposed to already. Just like I was that one kid, the one kid that was always on that dance floor getting her groove on. What? Music's on? What you call it? Slave to the rhythm? Yeah, something like that. So, there was that, the family get-togethers. My sister, one of my sisters, I have a lot of sisters, but one of my sisters, this was one that I wanted to be like. She ran track. She danced, she sang, she did all kinds of amazing things. She roller skated. I learned all my roller skating moves by my sister, and may she rest in peace. But I wanted to be like her when I grew up because she just was a hero to me. She just knew how to do it all. It was pretty amazing to me. Anyway, so she taught us her fun rhythm games. They were kind of like inappropriate for younger kids because they had curses. But she taught it to us. And we decided, we would learn those like fun rhythmic games. Also, in our neighborhood we had these things called cheers. And girls from different neighborhoods, posses, right? Kind of like it was in the same time where we had break battles. Right, so breakdance battles, cute crews. The guys would get together now and they compete against they would compete against each other. Right, it's like territorial. However, whatever was happening in that time, they would compete against each other. Where the girls, they got together and did cheers. Cheers is a combination of, I would say, cheerleading and body percussion, which is making music with your body, or stepping. But it was a combination of the two, and girls would go to they would go to neutral ground and they would perform, or they would compete against each other, and you was either dope or you wasn't, okay? Depending on what the crowds would say, right? It's the same thing with the break battles. Okay, so that was that. Now, another thing to add to my rhythmic soup was had a friend whose house a Puerto Rican friend. She and her sister, her family was Puerto Rican. And their stepdad was a percussionist, and he would always play. He was one of the people that would play Latin grooves outside, like really loud, and you would hear it out the window. I mean, these were just the sounds as a part of being a New York girl, and not New York. Well, people say New York City. I say Queens. We called Manhattan, we New Yorkers called Manhattan the city, and Queens was a borough. Whatever, call it whatever you may. We grew up in an environment where either reggae music was being blasted out of someone's window or out of someone's radio from their car while they were washing their car on Saturday, or at the beach, because I grew up by the beach, Rockaway Beach. And they would, you'd hear them playing it there, or you'd hear them playing it at the block parties, right? So either way, so you'd hear like reggae music or reggae dance hall music or Latin music. So he was one of those people that would blast the music, but he also, I'll never forget, he had a set of congas. And I didn't know how to play them or anything. I knew, look, I'm clumsy. I'm not even going to touch these things. They look beautiful. I'm not messing with them. But sometimes he would go and he would jam to these Latin grooves that he had blasting. And he's like, oh, he's like jamming, oh, boop, bop, go, boop, bop, go, right? So anyway, as that, at first it sounds cool, and then the next time, next time it was real nice, and we're jamming. Okay, yeah, that's just this Angel. He's just doing his thing, And after a while, for some reason, why would my brain pick this up? I don't know. Well, I do now, but I started to notice that there was this one common thread in every one of these Latin songs, and I just started I wasn't even jamming anymore. I was just getting annoyed. I found myself getting annoyed, being like, gosh, they play the same rhythm all the time. Boom, bap, go, go, bap, go, 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 bap, go, go, bap, boom, 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 bap, go, go, bap. That was usually the congas. Whatever. I was really upset. After a while, it just became really annoying to me. Cut to high school when I was singing backup and dancing with Morgan Heritage, who at the time was reggae and R&B. Now they're reggae. Now they're just reggae. They've been just a reggae band now. I mean, they're like Grammy Award winning band, Morgan Heritage. So they played. We worked for them, dance background and sang background for them. And I remember in rehearsals, we were rehearsing in the summer times like 10 hours a day. You want to talk about getting your 10,000 hours in a thing? We learn perfection. We learn how to record in a recording studio to perfection. We learn how to dance to perfection, how to present yourself to perfection. We learned how to sing and get the right tones live, which is a whole different monster from the recording studio, which is a whole different monster from live, right? Either way, this is where we learn how to just do this stuff to perfection. As we were rehearsing, and they had a band coach, Cliff Branch. I'm going to shout you out right now. Cliff Branch, miss you. There's I don't even know if they make people like you anymore, but that was a brilliant man. And he used to, School of Hard Knocks, really just coach them into being a really dynamic band. Fantastic. He coached us in how we sang and when we should sing and when it was most effective, etc. And also in recording, he was brilliant. Okay, he is, he might be. I haven't spoken to him in a while or seen him in a while, so I don't know if I'm hoping he's still alive. But still, shouting out Cliff Branch and shouting out Morgan Heritage. I'm very proud of those folks. They're kind of like my family and just near and dear to my heart because they really were a part of my, me learning the work ethic, right, and putting in that work to get perfect, right? To really increase my standards on, how I performed, how I sounded, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When Cliff would stop and correct the drummer, or he would correct the bass player, or he would correct the guitarist, or and this was really just tightening up the band and their music, their structure, and all that. I found myself picking apart and analyzing and going, what makes, to myself, like I never had these conversations with anybody. I had these conversations with myself. What makes a reggae song a reggae song? What makes a dance hall song a dance hall song? What makes an R&B song an R&B song? And then I started to realize, oh, it's in the bass. The bass is doing this, or the guitars are doing this, or there was the drums are doing this. And I started to really like pick that apart. Why in the world would I be doing that, right? It's kind of like three different people going to the same party. And these three different people, they could stay in the same room and they still have three completely different experiences. Why? Because their brain tends to pick up based on what kind of person they are, what they're supposed to be doing in their life, what their natural talent is, what their purpose is. Their brains are picking up different elements of that experience. So now it all makes sense to me why I became a rhythmist / percussionist / musician / composer / arranger, because my brain was already doing that. It's not why I became it. It just, I already was it. And I just needed to walk the path in order to perfect it or get really, really good at it. And I got that chance to just put the 10,000 hours in doing it. But then, at the time I was like, why do I keep analyzing this? But now it makes sense to me that, it's because you are a percussionist, at heart. It's because you are a rhythmist. It's because you're a composer. It's because you're a songwriter. It all makes sense. So when your child does something naturally that you didn't teach them, it's just kind of like you see them doing that thing and it kind of annoys you. Maybe they just repeat stuff all the time. Maybe they just dance around, or maybe they're just carefree and they're writing, silly poems or saying silly jokes. And I know it may seem annoying. I know it may seem repetitive sometimes, but there is something in their brain that is wired to who they are, what they were made for, and what God's purpose is for them. Like, we already have like a seed, like a tree. A tree starts out as a seed. And the seed is already that tree. It has it in it. It's wired in it. It's just not a tree yet, right? So it just has to be planted, and it has to grow, and it has to get all the things that it needs and all the elements, right? Like for me, it was rehearsals and exposure to these rhythms and bass lines and things like that. And it became what it already was supposed to become. So don't be so hard on your kids when they're naturally doing something without it having been taught. Like, really try to just look at it, observe it, and think, how can I help encourage this thing, right? So it doesn't become this annoying habit that your child has. Sometimes they're a problem solver. Sometimes they are a filmmaker. Sometimes they are songwriters. Sometimes they are doctors and scientists, especially the scientist kids. They are picking apart everything, taking apart everything, asking a whole bunch of questions. Like, that could be annoying. But if you can kind of take yourself out of that, take a step back and go, you know what? This may look like this could be something that looks like this in the future, right? And try to encourage it, because you just never know. Yeah. So I said all of that to say, I'm going to bring out that Bible scripture. Please forgive me. I will be reading this one because I haven't memorized this one. But this is Proverbs 22:29 that says, "Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings. They will not serve before officials of low rank. Isn't that interesting? Don't thwart your kids. Their natural gifts and their natural talents. And sometimes we even have fears or we have anxieties and we're like, don't do that in front of people, or don't do it. It's really because of what we're afraid to do in front of people. It's because what our deep-seated fears and our anxieties and our inadequacies, it just takes them a longer time to get to where they're naturally supposed to go, right? So leave them alone. Take a step back, observe, see where you can help them, how you can help them, and how you can encourage them, right? Don't make assumptions, okay? Just observe it. And if you have no idea, ask some people. You can even ask me. Like, I can really observe a child, especially an artist in many, on like all artist level, different kinds of art forms. I can observe a child and I can be like, oh, that's a writer. Oh, yeah, that's definitely someone who's gonna be singing or dancing or performing or being an actor. That's someone who's gonna be a musician. That's someone who's gonna be a scientist. That's someone who's gonna be in technical engineering, right? You just never know. So you could always ask me. Or ask a friend that you know that is also, somehow God kind of puts people in our lives to help us. And he gives us, he has that grace. He gives us that grace to put someone in our lives to help us look at our children and say, oh, they should be doing lights at a Broadway show. They're problem solving. They are creating lighting for this whole scene, or the movie writers, script writers, things like that. So yeah, I'm Camille Who, the performing arts Renaissance woman, and I am out.